So I was looking on the maps in the public library there in Los Angeles and trying to decide whether I wanted to go to the Sequoia National Park in California. It's one of the large national parks in California, or whether I wanted to go to Yosemite National Park. And looking at them, the things they had in favor, at least a few of the things, both of them had the tall sequoia trees, similar to redwoods, and/or redwoods are sequoias, but it's a species of tree. Grows incredibly tall. They're 100, 200 feet in the air. And most of their canopy is way up at the top. They don't have many leaves down low, so you see this long, tall trunk that goes up at least 50 feet or so before there are any leaves. A lot of them don't have leaves until they're even further up than that. And they're real beautiful, stand real tall and straight. And so both Sequoia National Park, named for them, has the sequoias, and Yosemite National Park has sequoias. So that was a neat thing to go look for. And Sequoia National Park is a little further south and eastern part of California. Not too far from, I guess it's the Mojave Desert, Needles, and Needles, California is a little city there, and the Mojave Desert, or next to it. They're a little bit north of there, but kind of that general area. And I think they're in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, including the tallest peak in the contiguous United States, the states that are all stuck together, which just means it doesn't include Alaska or Hawaii. But the tallest peak in the contiguous United States is Mount Whitney, and I said that it was Mount McKinley. Mount McKinley is actually the tallest peak in North America, in the whole continent of North America, and it's in Alaska. I guess it's on that side for you guys. I keep thinking about it like I'm looking at a map. There's Alaska over here, and East Coast over here, and Florida and New York. And I gotta switch it. For your point of view, Alaska would be over here, and California, West Coast, East Coast, Florida, New York State, the Breadlands in the middle. But yeah, Alaska has the highest peak in North America is Mount McKinley. I wasn't planning on going to Alaska, at least not on this initial leg of my road adventure. But I could have gone to Mount McKinley, which is a pretty darn tall peak. Tallest peak in the 48 states of the United States that actually touch each other. And that's in the Sequoia National Park. But those are the two main draws, with three main draws. There was the Sherman tree, I think it is. It's a tree you can drive your car through. They made a tunnel of it. That's how big some of the sequoias get. They're big enough to make a little tunnel for the car to go through. But other than those three main things, that was about all I knew about Sequoia National Park. And it'd be great to see, and beautiful, and mountains, and beautiful forest. But Yosemite had most of that going for it. They didn't have the Sherman tree, but they also had a beautiful valley that had been carved out by glacier activity at some point, some ice age, when the glaciers came down into North America, the ice sheets. One particular glacier carved out this sort of U-shaped valley in the same mountains that the Sequoia Park is in the south part, about midway up California, Northern California. And it's right near, not far from Reno, Nevada, and Lake Tahoe, and it's kind of where California goes up, and then it has a little turn, a little angle turn at the top of it, top last third of the state. Right in that angle, it's right in that area in California is where Yosemite is, and it's where also, Yosemite is a really big park, and one little part of it is that valley that's been carved out of it by the glacier actions. I met many people while I was there who were going backpacking in the back part of Yosemite. A lot of people don't go there, but if you're a backpacking, hiking enthusiast and like to do that kind of thing and camp out a little more wild in the wilderness, and there are a fair number of people who did that, then there's a lot of backcountry to Yosemite that the average public doesn't see. But the valley is very developed for tourism, and a lot of people go there. It's real accessible. You can drive your car right into the valley, right up to camping spots. They have, I think, a couple of campground areas where you can rent camping space. And they have lodges, so if you don't want to go rustic, you can actually be a little more at home with electricity and running water, I believe, in their lodges. And just beautiful, beautiful trails and waterfalls, lots of waterfalls down these canyon-like walls of this valley. And one particular site there is seen in a famous, or several famous, I looked it up, there's a bunch of them he took. Ansel Adams is a photographer, early 1900s, late 1800s maybe. Not sure the dates, I'll have to look that up. But an artist who took photographs in Yosemite National Park, though I don't think it was a national park then, it might have got designated later. But in that area, and in particular of what they call Half Dome. Half Dome was what, at one point in Earth's geological history, back way thousands of years, maybe a million years ago, I don't know how long ago, a big dome of magma pushed up underneath the Earth's crust, but it didn't quite break through, so it didn't quite become a volcano. It's what happens in a lot of places, a lot of areas where there is volcanic activity, these domes will occur, and they don't always break through and become volcanoes. And so this had happened along the mountains that were along there with Yosemite, where the Yosemite Park is. And I think it's, I want to say it's the Sierra Nevada mountains, I believe that's right. The Sierra range of mountains, the Sierra Nevadas, I guess they call it, isn't that right? Anyway, so Half Dome was originally this dome of granite, lava that cooled into granite underneath the Earth's crust, and then the glacier came through and carved out the valley, making it a half dome, so that half of the face was just carved away, left as a fairly sheer face, and then the other half is still the dome part. And in these Ansel Adams photographs, there are several that have the half dome, and I think at least one particularly famous one is beautiful. It shows the full moon, and it's like the full moon over Half Dome, and it's just really beautiful black and white photo, early example of using photography as an art medium, when at the time a lot of people were naysaying photography for art because they said it took a real talent, a skill, to be able to paint and represent a scene, beautiful scenery through painting, and a camera took away all of that. With a camera you just point and click and you got a beautiful scenery. So in those people's mind there was no real art to photography. But later on we've learned and we've seen the difference between professional photographers and non-professional photographers. People who really think about setting up the scene and getting the right angle and the right focus and the right color and the right time of day and the light and all the things that a photographer is concerned about, and really make it into an art, as opposed to someone who just snaps pictures of the family, or Sunday drivers that go out to the mountains and snap a few pictures. And they certainly can have some beautiful photographs, and certainly memorable photographs, especially if it involves family and friends. But they're not necessarily well composed, or they aren't always the right exposure, the right time of day, the right, all the compositional aspects of a good photograph. And so Ansel Adams was one of the first people to really show that photography could be more than just point and click, could really capture a moment. And especially something like a scene like having the full moon over this unusual geological formation, this half dome. And that's in Yosemite. So that was one of the things I really wanted to go see in Yosemite. I didn't know I'd see a full moon. All that build-up. We want to see the full moon. But I was definitely, hoping to see Half Dome and some of the other beautiful waterfalls and the sequoia trees and whatnot in Yosemite. Plus, I knew it would be relatively accessible. The valley area was relatively easy to get to by car, whereas a lot of Sequoia National Park, I didn't know. I didn't know how they had that laid out, arranged, whether there was a particular tourist area or area where you could get to by car. And there probably is. I'm sure there's probably maybe several. But you'd have to have a little bit of familiarity with it to go there and to take advantage of that. And by that, I just mean to be able to kind of make your way, survive. I'm not advocating that anybody do this, but if you do go out in the wilderness and you don't have any money, you're better to go out in the wilderness somewhere where there's other people around. I'm just saying, you know. I love the beauty of America's wild backwoods and wilderness areas and preserves and national parks, national forests. And I really, really support that, and I hope everyone else who hears me talking about it will support it, and will try to preserve as much of our natural wilderness as we possibly can. And I mean totally preserve it. I mean, don't even let people go back there except for maybe just rarely if they prove that they're not going to litter and set fires and, you know, even by accident and stuff, and throw off the ecological balance. Because if we don't preserve it now, it's just going to be gone, and it'll never come back. Or we'll be able to maybe grow back some, but you know what I'm saying. Once it gets changed, once man's footprint is all over it, it destroys so much of the beauty that is naturally there that we lose, and it may be lost forever. And I believe that's very important to preserve that. So anyway, my own philosophy about that. But if you are going in the outback, in the wilderness country on your own, and you don't have much money to buy a lot of provisions and be well, you know, situated, and or don't know how to survive in the wilderness. And I told you in one of the videos earlier that I'd gone to the public library and tried to read up on edible flora, edible plants, and really was not very successful at figuring that out. One of the things I figured out was that it seemed that most of the berries that are green are not edible. Either they're poisonous, or they don't do anything for you, or they might make you sick. They may not kill you, but they may make you sick. So I figured out that much. I said, well, just leave all the green berries alone. Pretty much all of them are bad. Some of the black and purple and red ones may be bad, but a lot of those were good. And I knew what blackberries looked like, and I felt fairly confident I could figure out what blueberries look like, and some of the other ones that would be possible to find, but I didn't know really what was, you know, indigenous available in that area. And to try to live off of just a handful of berries, you know, that's not going to do it either. So fishing, I hadn't really researched how to go about doing that, or what fish might be available, or if it was legal to, and if you needed to have fishing license, etc., or about fishing gear and that kind of thing. I fished when I was growing up. Our father, my brothers, and I would go out fishing. We did it a lot. We did it every couple of weekends or so during the summers a lot of times. And, you know, fish for catfish in the river, or little sunfish, or sometimes we get bass or crappies or perch, or sometimes maybe catfish or other fish like that. But that takes a certain amount of equipment, a certain amount of know-how, and you got to have the legal certifications, or if you do get caught, it can be a big fine. It's problematic, you know. I wasn't really planning on staying out there too long if I could help it. If I couldn't find a way to survive, subsist, kind of roughing it like that, then I figured I'd just go back to civilization, back to one of the larger cities or towns that would have Salvation Armies and other missions and places like that.